Let's talk about dogs, baby. Let's talk about dogs, baby. Let's talk about dogs, baby. As you can guess, this episode is going to be our dogs. Well, one dog in particular. And in this recording, if you listen really close, you might hear that dog barking in the background because, yes, this story that I'm coming up with for Dumb Test Late, because I'm still Kirk, is based on the dog that lives next door that constantly barks. To the point where I thought of a grim tale to tell about it. That's where the story begins, about a big, giant, black fur dog that terrifies me and annoys me at the same time. So what else am I going to do but let's write a story about it with the help of Chat GPT or some kind of AI bot that I can get my hands on. But the main story I came up with. Okay. So I live in Florida. And I'm trying to think if I should keep it strictly like the story setting in Florida, because it does add a weird tale to it, twist to it, I should say, to the tale I'm going to tell. But it is about a big, terrifying dog. And kind of a dog you can't see at first. Because it literally, like, my apartment is at the side next to a really tall fence and the dog is next door. And I can't see the dog, but I can hear it. Even at one point, like when I first moved here, the dog would, anytime I try to open, like I have to open a gate to get to the entrance of my apartment, the dog would be on the other side trying to get at me. And I would just see parts of its like paw and fur, and it was terrifying. It's kind of the fear of what you can hear, and know is there, but you can't see. And knowing, like, just from context clues of seeing the fence move and where its paws are, how big and loud this dog is. But yeah. So that's the basis of it. The real life basis. A terrifying dog I can't see, because it even starts like when I was first moving in. The landlord had told me the other neighbors had like a new puppy. And I didn't even like think anything else of it, but fast forward to when I was moving in, I had like the fence that I said I had to like open to get to the entrance of my apartment. I had it propped open because I was moving stuff, from my car into the apartment. And this is the first time I heard the dog bark, and it was so loud, and just a loud dog where it makes basically make me froze. Like I froze where I was standing. I was walking back to my car to get more stuff, and I froze. It was so terrifying because I left the front, like the fence open. So in my mind, this dog is about to run straight at me and kill me. That's how loud and just terrifying the dog sounded. And I literally I was standing there frozen for a good couple of seconds. I realized the dog is on the other side of the fence. It was the neighbor's dog. I was like, oh my gosh. That was like when something loud like that happens and you don't know what's going on, you just freeze. I hate when like you get scared and you just freeze and you can't move. But yeah, I never had dogs growing up, so that's another thing. I'm not too familiar with dogs, but this is a gigantic, loud dog, like to the point where normal, like people who have been over here and people who have stopped by and heard this dog are like, even my other neighbors who have dogs are like, that dog is insane. But yeah, so that's the basis. That's the real life basis of where this comes from. It's also based on another podcast I listen to called Lore. They have a whole podcast like, I was about to say genre, but a whole like family of podcasts that's based around lore. There's Grimm, I think Grimm is called one, and there's Cabinet of Curiosities. It's really good. I love like the one about lore. They tell like old stories of, folklore. That's what it's based off. And one of the episodes they talked about lore based around dogs. I think the episode was called Grimm. And they were talking about the history of folklore around dogs. And a lot of it came from England and Scotland and all that. Like when I'm doing research for it, a lot of them came up with the history of through there. There's all sorts of different ones. When I looked up black dog folklore, there's a Yeth hound, or the Yell hound is a black dog found in Devon folklore. I'm reading for like it's called Villains Wiki. Um, yeah, this one is a headless dog. I don't think I'll do a headless dog. The spirit of an unbaptized child inside of the dog. That's terrifying. It rambles through the woods at night, making wailing noises. Oh, that's terrifying. There's one from Scotland I cannot pronounce. It's an enormous, otherworldly hound sent to haunt the Scottish Highlands, roughly the size of a cow or a large calf. So the dog next door is big, so I'm thinking it's going to be a big dog, but nothing out of the ordinary where you would think it's not a dog, it's a wolf or something like that. But the other thing I'm basing this on is the original story of Dracula, like the book. I listened to the beginning chapters in the audiobook version on Spotify, actually, because I've heard that randomly. I don't know if it's the podcast I was listening to. I just heard this, osmosis reading things, but that when Dracula comes to England, he comes in the form of a black dog, because even in early parts of the book, Count Dracula can control wolves. He uses it to kill someone. He uses, there's wolves hunting for him and kind of keeping his house or castle guard. And he comes on a ship to England, and everybody on the ship has been killed. When the ship gets there, there's people looking, and I think they found the captain with no blood, dead. I think they said attached to the part that steers the ship. I can't think of that. And a black dog they see, but the black dog runs away when everybody shows up. And it's later found out that's how, Dracula disguised himself as Count Dracula disguised himself as this black dog. So at that point, that's where my story would start. Like I said, I don't know if I would base it in Florida because it'd be kind of weird, but I like that app. I like the different setting. You wouldn't think of Dracula or a vampire or a demon and a black dog in Florida. It would kind of change the setting. So just for story's sake, I would start with that. But where I would, like I said, it would start where that part stops in Dracula. So I don't know if it's going to be Dracula himself, a version of a vampire, or just a demon, because there's a lot of folklore about demons being stuck in or taking the shape of this black dog. But in my story, whatever it is, let's go with demon here, so I could keep it generalized. Is stuck inside this black dog. I say stuck because it can't change. It can't escape. It can't, take another vessel or change its appearance. It gets stuck for some reason. So the backstory would be somebody catches it and can keep it as this black dog version, but kind of a black dog that can't really do anything. It's just stuck as a loud, really large, terrifying black dog in Florida. The person who catches it knows, finds out, or there's a whole backstory of how they hunt it down. And they kind of, for generations, maybe 1 or 2 generations, they keep it in this form, and it gets passed down from family or different members as the caretaker for this black dog, because they have to do something to keep it in this form. Because if they fail to, the demon can escape and change forms and kind of, wreak havoc. So that's where the person, my character, would start. For some reason, he moves in next door, or he moves into an adjacent apartment. Because a lot of the apartments here in South Florida are there'll be one house and they'll be broken up into apartments. That's kind of how mine is. So he's a neighbor of this black dog, and he's terrified. But then he learns from the person who's kind of the for lack of a better term, the watchdog of this demon dog, of its powers. That's why it's so loud and terrifying. He can't see it at first. He could just hear it, and it just installs deep fear into him. He knows this isn't a normal dog, but he can't really see it. But then something happens, and he learns this from the neighbor. And then my character accidentally is entrusted to keep this demon inside the dog. But then something is different about my character, and he basically finds a way to communicate with the dog. And he learns what the dog really is. It's a demon that has these powers, and he has to do this to. And it's like a thing you have. Someone always has to be there to keep this, demon in the vessel of the dog. It has to be passed off to one caretaker after another, and my character accidentally falls into that role. But instead of him being like pious and being, just like a Van Helsing or something like that, he takes advantage where he can use the powers of the dog to kind of like not wreak havoc, but let's say be kind of like a criminal or a bad person, but not like a super villain. But they could just do random things that, are only benefit them or using, these demon dog powers. This is coming from watching too much What We Do in the Shadows, the amazing vampire story, where there is a dog there's a normal dog that the vampires call a demon dog, but it's like a normal golden retriever that ends up living with like a scion vampire in New Jersey. The story gets weird, but I still love it. But like that would be a thriller side, but add a comedic element to it where it's Florida, so everybody's crappy. So he learns these powers from this demon dog and exploits the demon dog for his own good. Like when other neighbors are loud and annoying, he figures out a way to turn them into kind of like these really weak vampires. So he can kill them and be like, oh, they're vampires. Look, I just saved you all from vampires. I don't know why that popped into my head. Maybe too many loud neighbors and you think of what you can do. Not in reality, just turn them into vampires and go, look, I found vampires and I killed them. But that will be the twist of the story. He's not just fearful of the dog. He ends up being stuck with the dog. That's a demon. He knows that. But the dog also relies on him because he can easily just kill like he figures out, I can just do this and just send you back to where you're from or take away all your powers so you're nothing. But I'm going to give you a little bit of powers it's kind of the quid pro quo when it comes to demon dog relationship. That would be like the story, how the story keeps going. So that's where I get from my story. This person who stumbles upon this demon dog and he's stuck with being its caretaker, but he uses it to his advantage for like his own personal gain. Like, that's the most I have. But I did, of course, my friend Chat GPT. I gave them the prompt. This is the prompt I gave them. Movie or television series idea where a demon or vampire comes to America in the version of a black dog but gets trapped and powerless by an unsuspecting new human who uses the evil powers for their own uses. Kind of when I went over, I didn't really add the comedic element. But the title they gave is Shadowbound. And their genre is supernatural thriller. This is their logline. When a malevolent demon takes on the guise of a black dog and arrives in America, it finds itself unwittingly trapped and powerless by an unsuspecting human. They just repeat everything. As the new host learns to harness the dark powers, they must navigate a world of ancient rituals, secret societies, and supernatural threats, all while struggling the moral implications of wielding such sinister abilities. All of a sudden, like, that's another thing. A human who all of a sudden is thrown into this world where demons and witches and all these like vampires and everything actually exist. And they're kind of, it's like when you give a normal person power, what they actually do with it is also part of the story. So the synopsis that ChatGPT came up with: in the quaint town of Ravenswood, a mysterious black dog named Cerberus, it's a little too on the nose, but all right, arrives. Unbeknownst to the residents, harboring a malevolent demon seeking a new host, the demon plans to take demon's plan take an unexpected turn when it's trapped in the body of Jake Harris, an ordinary college student. See, that's the part I wouldn't go with, where the demon can hop hosts. The ordinary person would learn that this dog that somehow accidentally they get entrusted with is a demon. Jake discovers newfound powers. He wouldn't have powers. The dog would have powers, and he can somehow control them. he becomes entangled in a web of ancient rituals and supernatural politics. Simultaneously, a vampire coven led by charismatic and ancient Valerius senses the disturbance and sets out to exploit the situation, aiming to use Jack's dark powers for their own gain. Jack must navigate the treacherous waters between these opposing forces while grappling the moral implications of using the demon abilities. Throughout the series, Jake delves into the hidden history of Ravenswood, unearthing long buried secrets that connect his destiny with the town's supernatural past. He gains control over the demon's power. Jake becomes a reluctant hero, defending Ravenwoods from the supernatural threats dawn to the unleashed energy. That's a part I would kind of go with. He does become a reluctant hero, but he's not a good hero, if that makes sense. Like, he's an anti-hero because he's fighting other bad forces that are trying to capture what the demon dog can do. Like, he learns his demon dog is really powerful. And all of a sudden, when he becomes its caretaker, he doesn't do things right, and it sends out a signal. So the rest of the supernatural world do show up. I would agree. I would add that. But then that's where he has to rely on the demon dog, as the demon dog has to rely on him to keep them both alive. That would be like the conflict. Like, there's not people. There's these supernatural entities that are vampire covens or whatever, Van Helsing's hunters, coming to kill the demon dog and also kill me, my character. So they have to rely on each other to use each other's powers to stay alive and hide and run and all this stuff. Fate and all that stuff that, like, oh, this character had this huge background that he didn't know. I don't like going down that rabbit hole of stories. I hate that. When all of a sudden the story, and it was like, oh, you had the power inside of you all along, and you had this ancestral heritage. No, I'm not a fan of that. I like just regular people in stories who are thrown into crazy situations and kind of survive. Maybe they grow. My character will build his own powers and, go into this, supernatural underworld as a human, which it's hidden from his eyes, but it was hidden before, but things start opening it up. But yeah, that's my grim tale. And also, Grimm is like the way I first heard about the folklore with the black dog. I think it was called Grimm. There's much, much more different names for it, but Grimm is the one that stuck with me. So the title of this one, when I heard of Grimm, I thought about this old adventure video game from a long time ago called Grim Fandango, about like a detective or somebody who, it's like the Grim Reaper or something like that. So mine would just be Grim Dango. I was trying to come up with some kind of clever play, but Grim Dango, because my character starts calling the dog Dango. So it'll just be Grim Dango would be my story name, which is something when I Googled that has to do with some magica, or I have no idea. I'm not that big of a nerd when it comes to that. But Grim Dango, about the black demon dog in Florida, of all places. Florida seems like it's haunted. I lived here long enough. Florida has it's like in Ghostbusters 2, where there's just like a river of sludge flowing under New York. There's something like that in Florida. Florida's a weird place. But yeah, it's my Grim Dango tale. Maybe I'll come back to it when I have something else to work on. I'll keep listening to Dracula, the audiobook of the original Dracula tale. Maybe there's something else to do with him turning into the dog that I'll find that'll inspire me. Yeah, that's my story. I'm trying to get out these like stuck story ideas in my head before it's fully holiday season. Thanksgiving is next week, so it is upon us, peeps. It is upon us. But I hope you like this one. Sorry if I'm still coming off spooky season, so the ideas are kind of dark. But like I said, it's almost a holiday season. But yeah, this is my current idea for Dumb Test Slate. Check out the website, dumbtestslate.com. Check out my Instagram, Dumb Test Slate. I'll post pictures. I have like some AI generated pics from this idea. I'll post on there. So thanks again. See you guys well, you won't. I won't see you. You won't see me. Maybe you'll hear me. You never know. Remember, maybe I'll venture back into the world of YouTube. Start making YouTube shorts. I don't know, or TikTok shorts. But thanks again for listening. Check on the next